Good evening, everyone. We are now in Joshua chapter 12. Chapter 12 is really a summary of everything that has happened with regards to Joshua chapter 1 all the way, as well as the conquest, I would call the East Jordan conquest, because the conquest itself, where they are supposed to inherit the land, started with Moses on the eastern shore of the Jordan. And then after Moses died, then Joshua took them across the Jordan River. And then we had gone through the various chapters in the earlier chapters of the book of Joshua with regards to the central conquest, the southern conquest, and last week in chapter 11, we saw the northern conquest. Now, all of these needs to be put back together into a single picture in chapter 12. And so these are the kings of the land whom the children of Israel defeated. The idea here, I think you could actually, the word defeat here is basically cause to subjugate, right? Caused to subjugate. And I think we need to realize that in so doing, you find that they defeated, not only they attacked, they defeated, they conquered, they imposed the punishment of God upon them. And so the word defeat is maybe it's a bit too weak in this sense. And whose land they possess on the other side of the Jordan, towards the rising sun, from the river Arnon to Mount Hermon, and all the eastern Jordan plain. Now, all of these are a description of the conquest itself. And so I guess for our purposes this evening, we need to break down some of these understanding of the words. First, the children of Israel attacked, conquered, defeated, subjugated this land. And the land that they dispossessed, all right, this word possess also means dispossess. It's a very interesting word for the Hebrew, because this single word, possess, also means to dispossess, to take possession as well as dispossess. And we also understand this word in our translation as inherit. And we will get to this point because we need to now break down this word eventually. On the other side of the Jordan, toward the rising of the sun. What does this mean? This means the east of Jordan. And in the east of Jordan, now we don't know the river Arnon. Perhaps the river Arnon is somewhere in the northern part of the eastern side of the Jordan. But we know Mount Hermon. Mount Hermon is the northern point. Mount Hermon, by the way, is actually the highest peak in the hills of Israel, and it would be the northernmost mountain, and it has snow-capped peaks. And what you would find is that the importance of Mar Hermon is that the spring river, the springtime where the snow melts, it will melt into the Jordan and then into the Galilee, and then down to the Salt Sea or the Dead Sea. And that's where the Mount Hermon is actually feeding the Jordan River. And all the eastern Jordan plain. Now, whenever we talk about the Jordan plain, that is the flat lands which is just next to the Jordan River. That's the whole aspect, and that's very fertile. One king was Sihon, king of the Amorites, who dwelt in Heshbon and ruled out of Gilead from Aroer, which is on the bank of the river Arnon, from the middle of that river, even as far as the river Yabok, which is the border of the Ammonites. And this one we need to know is that this is the northern border of the country of Ammon. And this is important for us to realize is that in Deuteronomy chapters 2 and 3, we are informed that as they traveled north from Edom, God says, don't touch Edom, don't touch Moab, don't touch Ammon. They are not for you because it has been given to the descendants of Lot and of Esau. And they are their relatives. But once they cross the northern border of Ammon, that is when God gave the rest of the land of Sihon. And so the eastern Jordanian plain from the Sea of Kinneret. This is actually this word here is Kinroth, right? Kinroth. Or we call it Kinneret. And this would be also known as the Sea of Galilee. Now, the Sea of Kinneret here is the ancient name. And that body of water called the Sea of Galilee, that we know of it today from the Gospel books, is also known as the Sea of Tiberias in the Roman times. It is now, in the ancient times, known as the Sea of Kinneret because of the neighboring town of Kinneret, which is sitting on the southeastern shore of the sea. Now, we call it the sea, but really, technically, in modern times, it is really a lake, right? And then as far as the Sea of the Arava, which is a salt sea, or what we call the Dead Sea today. And let me just finish this before I draw you the map. The road to Beth Yeshimot and southwards to the slopes of Pisgah. And then the other was Og, the king of Bashan and his territory, the remnants of the giant. And remember, Og is the tallest person in the Bible. He slept on an iron bed of approximately 14 feet. So he was a remnant of the, they call it the giants. It's the Rephaim. The Rephaim, who dwelt at Ashtaroth and Edrei, Edrei, and reigned over Mount Hermon, over Salcah, over all Bashan. And by the way, Bashan would be Golan Heights today. And then as far as the border of the Geshurites and the Maacathites, and over half of Gilead, to the border of Sihon, the king of Heshbon. Now, let me try to paint this picture. We have Mount Hermon at the north. Mount Hermon has a couple of rivers that flows into what is now called the Sea of Kinneret. And then the Jordan goes all the way down. And then we have the Salt Sea. And so this whole 5 verses, when we were talking about the 5 verses, we are really talking about this entire area. And we do see that we have Ammon here, and we have Moab. But we are seeing Pisgah on this side, right? And that's where Moses was buried. And so we have this entire area on the eastern shore of the Jordan. And this was actually taken by Moses. So we have Sihon and we have Og of Bashan. So Bashan is over here. All right. And so this is the picture we have up to verse 5. Now in verse 6 gives us the summary that these are the what Moses, the servant of the Lord, and the children of Israel had conquered. Now this word conquered, again, is it's the same word as we had seen above, called defeated. But basically it is about subjugation. To really take over and to impose a punishment that God has on these people. And Moses, the servant of the Lord, had given it as a possession to the Reubenites, the Gadites, and half tribe of Manasseh. Let us now break down a couple of words so that we have a better feel. The word servant. The word servant is eved. Literally, the word servant is normally translated as slave. But I don't quite like this word. So servant is someone who I would say serve, right? Who takes orders and then performs them. And that would be a better word for the word servant, right? Aved or eved. And the idea here is that the Israelites were servants in Egypt. They weren't slaves in the technical sense of the word. They had the freedom where they lived, but they had to listen to a master. And so Moses is called the servant of the Lord, is that Moses was called by God to take orders from God, which is called the commands, and he instructs the Israelites what to do, and they perform the order. And so Moses actually listens to God, takes the commands, and then teaches and tells the children of Israel what to do. And hence that is the word servant. So I think we need to have probably a recalibration of our dictionary, not to think of this word servant as a slave, but very much as one who listens to God, takes instructions, and carries out that instruction. That would be the more proper Hebraic thinking of the word servant. And the servant of the Lord will tell us who the master is. And so Moses treats God as his master. And that would be the relationship, a servant and a master. And you would always find that the servant is the one who is lower than the master in terms of a hierarchy, as one who is humble to listen, and the master is one who gives the instructions. This servant-master relationship is what is described here, called servant of the Lord. Now, this is a very important part of the lessons that we will learn in the book of Joshua, since we have time to break this down. Moses have no trouble with that. So Moses listened to God at the burning bush, took up the commission, did everything he was told, and the picture, the word that is given, is the servant. He is not, although in the eyes of the Israelites, he is a great man, but in the eyes of God, he is nevertheless one who takes orders from God. And he gives the same order to the children of Israel. And so you would find that Moses takes on the role of a master. And he is respected by the children of Israel. And so when they listen to Moses, God executes his faithfulness in the plan so that they can defeat these people. Now that is the whole picture. And so Moses had given as a possession to the Reubenites, Gadites, and half tribe of Manasseh, which is on the eastern side. Now, the word given is important as well. And so the word given here basically is one word. And the whole idea here is to allow them to take occupation. That's one meaning. Also, to allow them to take possession. Take possession means take ownership. To inherit is another word we see. Now, I think we have always looked at it as inherit. I think we should discard our modern day understanding of inheritance. Although in principle it was promised to Abraham, they had to take possession by going into battle, listening to God, trusting God that God has given it to them, so that by some supernatural means, God enables them to have the ability to defeat enemies who are far greater than them. And by that relationship of trust in God, they eventually take possession, take ownership, allowed to occupy, inherit, and then has it as a heritage. That is one word that is multifaceted, that they would then give it to their children and to their children's children. And so in this part of the eastern shore, Reubenite, Gadite, and Manasseh were to take possession and treat it as an inheritance and to give it to their children. So this one word is a magic word, broad-based, so that we understand that the word inheritance is not merely to walk in and take the land, but literally to fight for it in trusting God and to defeat enemies far greater than them. And so this whole relationship is to trust God in his faithfulness, trust God in his promise. They have to do their part to obey God. And in so doing, God will give them the opportunity to take possession of the land. Now, this is the relationship of humility, of obedience, of faithfulness, both on their part and on the part of God. That is what taking possession literally means in this case. So I hope that we do not carry this modern meaning of take possession, go in, take keys to the house. That's not how it works. Now, in verse 7, it is a recount of then Joshua's part of it, that these are the kings of the land. And this would be the better word. They are not broken down into countries, but they are broken down into lands and kingdoms. And they are called kingdoms because they are ruled by kings. That's as simple as a definition. So do not have this modern day of kings or agons and countries as if we have big terrain. This is actually a land mass of cities where kings have dominions or they rule over them. Right? That's what it means. Which Joshua and the children of Israel, now see this word again, conquered. The word conquered here is also the same word, to defeat, to subjugate, to judge. On this side of the Jordan, which is the west, on the west, from Baal Gad in the valley of Lebanon, as far as Mount Halak and the ascent to Seir, which Joshua gave to the tribes of Israel as a possession. Again, this is the same word. This is inheritance. Not in our modern day word, inheritance, right? It is for them to occupy. And then according to their divisions. The word division here is allotment, their share, as they were allocated. And you would see there is a mountains, there would be the lowlands, there would be the plains of the Jordan River, in the slopes, in the wilderness, in the south, which is Negev. This is in verse 8, in the Negev. This is the land of the Hittites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, the Jebusites, which is in the area of Jerusalem for the Jebusites, the hill countries, right? Gibeon for the Hivites. There are different. These people are not just in the south; they also are in the north. But in the south, they have kings. In the north, they don't. Right? The king. And from verse 9 onwards, we read about the kings. Now, let me just recap, right? Kings. A king is a person who rules. And what do they rule over? They rule over people. They rule over cities. They have a dominion over a certain area. And hence he is called a king. But not in our sense of the modern day word. I guess our modern day kings came from the ancient times as well. He is an El. All right, basically he's an El. He is a mighty one, where he would be the one who calls the shots. He is the one who has power over these people. And so there are many of these territory. So a dominion over a territory. And so they are tribal. The people are tribal people. They have built cities and they are fortified. They are a city with gates and walls. They are cities that has without walls as well. And they are the ones in the plains. They are the ones who have to do agriculture. And so understand that this king would be a leader of the leaders within a territory. And that would be the proper understanding when they cross over the Jordan into that area called the Promised Land. Now in verse 9, defines the territory. Because the territory is by kings. So the territory, which we actually don't know, it's not a city. So Jericho is the city itself, as well as the surrounding areas where the king actually rules. So understand from verse 9 onwards, when it defines the king as Melech, he is one that represents the territory of Jericho, and he's the king, he's the chief, he's a head honcho. He is the one who rules over that territory. And so king of Jericho, one. King of Ai, which is besides Bethel, one. King of Jerusalem, one. So we know these as territories. King of Hebron, one. King of Yamut, one. King of Lachish, one. King of Eglon, one. King of Gezer, one. King of Dever, one. King of Geder, one. King of Hormah, one. King of Arad, this would be Arad, one. The king of Livna, one. King of Adullam, one. King of Makkedah, one. King of Bethel, one. So notice this Bethel in this Bethel is the same Bethel. King of Tapuach, one. King of Hefer is one. King of Afek, one. King of this would be Lasharon, one. King of Madon, one. The king of Hadzor, one. And this one you have to remember, the king of Hadzor was hung and the place was burnt. The king of Shimron Meron, one. The king of Achshaph, one. The king of this is Tatnak, one. The king of Megiddo, one. The king of Kadesh, one. The king of Yoknaam, one. And he is in Carmel, one. King of Dor, in the heights of Dor, one. The king of the people of Gilgal, one. The king of Titzra, one. So all the kings is 31. Now we need to realize that this 31 here refers to 31 kings, which refers to the territory which they defeated, conquered, subjugated, possessed, took possession. All right. So this is how the count is. So if you counted everything, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, and 31. So what is important for us to realize is that we need to understand that there are still people around in this land. These are merely in the areas of kings, which means that they have armies, they can defend itself, they are powerful in their own right. But there are other people who lives around there, and we have been told in the previous chapter that there is also the Anakim that is in the area of Gaza. And I believe that would be the present-day Gaza as well. The area of the Philistines, in the area of Gath. And later on in 1 Samuel, we would read of an Anakim, maybe a remnant of the Rephaim, like in the family of Goliath. And so one of the things that we find is that although they took over control over all these 31 territories, there are still other people around which they have not fought, and they did not go and subjugate. So understand that these 31 kings do not represent everything, but it does represent a cross domain from the north to the south, from Mount Hermon all the way to the Negev. And so that would be the western side of the promised land. And so when you combine the two together, we would have the promised land from the north to the south. And then in the later chapters of the book of Joshua, Joshua would then start to allocate and partition out the land to the rest of the I would say 9.5 tribes, minus the Levites. And so with this, we should have a clear understanding that number one, Joshua took over the territory of 31 kings. But these are not all the territories that is in the control of the people there, but it is the majority of them where they are capable to launch warfare. The rest of the people are likely to be peasants and agricultural type of people. So they are not the ones that is able to rise up. However, there are also remnants from some of these kingdoms in the land that eventually pop up again, as you can tell from the book of Judges that came after the book of Joshua. And hence, that would be a book that you should be able to read with this background in mind. And with this, we come to the end of chapter 12